on the clock. It's presented by Progressive Insurance. And really what it is we like to present you with names and scenarios. Well, now we're entering day 2. Behind me, I've got Miles Sanders and Le'Veon Bell. 2 players taken on day 2. You can find some good gems on day 2. Let's go around the horn and name some of them. Kyle Brandt, we're looking at the best available players per the great Daniel Jeremiah. But who's your player that you're considering?
Let's go right there in the right hole, Peter. There used to be this position in the National Football League called running back. And if it weren't for Edwards-Helaire and the last pick, there wouldn't have been any drafted last night. I got to look at DeAndre Swift, the running back from Georgia. Time was you go for a couple 1,000-yard seasons at Georgia, you can be a first-round pick. And yet last night, he's the one tweeting, say no more. He had a very powerful tweet. Obviously, he was disappointed. It got retweeted thousands and thousands of times. Another Georgia guy, Mecole Hardman, tweeted, wait a sec, are you telling me that out of 32 teams, no one picked DeAndre Swift? Guys, he's a really good player, kind of in the vein of some of those other dogs. You look at Nick Chubb, you look at Todd Gurley, really productive, really versatile, and it's what we say, guys. Sometimes mama don't want their kids to grow up to be running backs. If you got a tire swing in your yard, that your kid should be throwing through it, not running through it. 2008 draft, there were 5 running backs taken in the first round because people wanted some action on Felix Jones. Nobody wanted DeAndre Swift, but as is the case with Nick Chubb, another second-round guy, maybe it works out for him. I look early in this round. Maybe it's a team like Indy, a team like Detroit. Someone can use this guy. Again, when you do Herschel Walker-type things at Georgia, you're going to do big things in the NFL too. Look for Swift to go early tonight.
All right, I'm going to go with safety. I would just call him a defensive back because he can do just about everything, and that's Antoine Winfield Jr. Out of Minnesota Golden Gophers University, that is. His father, I actually played with Antoine Winfield Sr. when I was playing for the Minnesota Vikings. This is another individual that put up numbers in college. He's constantly around the ball, and he can do it all. He can play inside the box. He'll come down and hit you. And then on top of that, he'll play special teams. He was even back there at returner. So given the fact that he is a Golden Gopher, I believe this is a golden opportunity for somebody to get a pro's pro. Certain guys that come from the pedigree of fathers who were Pro Bowlers like Antoine Winfield Sr. was, they just know the game. So he's a smart individual. He has the IQ. He could come in right away and fit in on any squad. So I guarantee he'll come off the board early. The question is, where will he go?
Those questions will be answered, of course, tonight on NFL Network, ABC, and ESPN. I'm looking at T. Higgins. I feel like I've talked about him a lot in this draft process, and I want everyone to take his underwhelming pro day and throw it out the window. Turn on his highlights. This guy's 6'4". He catches everything in his general whereabouts, and he is awesome. He had as many touchdowns in his college career as other Clemson standouts, DeAndre Hopkins and Sammy Watkins. That is right, 27. So I'm looking at a team in the Midwest, the Indianapolis Colts. Do me a solid for my guy, Lip Rivers. You have T.Y. Hilton there. He's a little bit of a smaller guy on the opposite side. I want this. I want T plus T.Y. This is what I want to see. I feel like this will be an explosive, firepower offense. Colts, you didn't have a draft pick in the first round because of the DeForest Buckner thing, so let's just get T. Higgins. Triggs, do you like that?
I love that. I think T. Higgins is one of several different wide receivers who are going to be on the board and available today. Denzel Mims fell out of the first round. There were several guys that thought maybe you could see some of the speed. Michael Pittman might go. But the guy that I like most is the guy out there in Boulder, Colorado, Laviska Shenault. 6'1", 217 pounds, does it all. Even played Wildcat quarterback at Colorado. He was a one-man wrecking crew. So why wasn't he selected last night? Because Laviska Shenault has some injury issues. He had surgery on March 3rd to repair a core muscle injury. It's not considered a big problem. But he's also in the past had turf toe surgery, shoulder injuries. But none of that should be a deterrent when it comes to day 2. I attended a USC Colorado game last year. Matt Barkley and I were on the sidelines. We're walking up and down, and I say, who is that? And the great college football reporter, Bruce Feldman, says, that's the next great NFL wide receiver. Laviska Shenault has an incredible story, a tragedy in his life that he's overcome. But I look at him as a player, and I think day 2, I can get this guy. If you thought Tua was not a risk at 5, Laviska Shenault, day 2 is an absolute steal. Can't wait to see where he goes. I would look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They can use another weapon. And in the recent history, they've had Chad Brown. They've had Cordell Stewart. They've gone up to Boulder quite a few times to find some weapons. Laviska Shenault, I'm here watching. I can't wait to see where he ends up.
Whoever takes Shenault, you have to send Peter Schrager a jersey immediately. This has been the guy. I mean, you have talked about him so much this draft process. So please, Shenault to Schrager, stat. That all goes down tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is the second round. Schrager is talking about it. So many wide receivers left. So many running backs still on the board. Just one win in the first round. These are guys that are going to be on your fantasy squad and scoring touchdowns for your favorite team week in, week out, 2020 and on. The next step in the college football stars journey is tonight, the 2020 NFL draft. We also have the draftathon. We were all part of it yesterday in some weird way. I think Schrags is hopping on today. You don't know who's going to show up, but it's all for a great cause. I looked at it about an hour ago, $3.9 million raised to help fight COVID-19. More Good Morning Football, of course, on the way. You guys ready to do another hour of this?
Yeah, let's go.
Here on Good Morning Football, good morning. Welcome to our show. We're presented by Ram Trucks today. Nate, thoughts on Roger Goodell's TikTok dancing?
Roger Goodell was looking smooth. I'm digging. Everybody's on TikTok. Hey, you on TikTok? Are you on TikTok?
I am not on TikTok. I know you and your daughter are doing some TikToking during this social distancing time. Our show's on NFL Network. You can check it out on 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Kyle Brandt and Peter Schrager do have a TikTok. They will tweet that out. They do dances together. It's really fun. Check it out. Right, guys?
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, we're in a horse costume. It's awesome.
All right, more on the new Chargers quarterback in a bit, more on the Dolphins' new guy, but let's hit the lead block. Lead block.
Lead block.
Lead block. Lead block.
If you're new to our show and you're enjoying us on our simulcast today, ESPN2, welcome. We've been on from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern here, and things get a little crazy in the third hour, especially since I don't think any of us slept more than 3 or 4 hours last night. So let's get right into it, shall we? And let's start on the West Coast. The LA Chargers got their guy, Justin Herbert. It was the 6th overall pick in the draft. And Omar Ruiz, we haven't talked to you in so long. Break it down.
When Justin Herbert was tested by the Chargers offensive staff during the pre-draft process, he said he messed up a formation so badly he told his agent he didn't think he was going to be a Charger. It was a miscalculated concern, of course, as Los Angeles selected the former Oregon star with the number 6 overall pick. General Manager Tom Telesco told me he saw the reaction to that mistake as Herbert having a perfectionist mentality, one of the many intangible qualities, along with his leadership abilities, that the Chargers valued with Herbert. Herbert said there's no pressure in trying to replace Phillip Rivers or to even eventually become the face of the franchise one day. Rather, he described this as an incredible opportunity.
Okay, Omar Ruiz, your facial hair and that tan absolutely win the NFL draft. But here are the quarterbacks that were taken just last night. Burrow, Tagovailoa, Herbert, and Jordan Love, a surprise trade-up from the Packers to take their backup quarterback of the future. So let's start with Peter here. When you compare Herbert's situation with Burrow in Cincinnati and Tua in Miami, did Herbert find himself in the best overall stitch?
Look, here's the deal with your Justin Herbert. You go to L.A., you're going to have this responsibility to potentially be the face of the franchise in a new stadium with a relatively new fan base in a new market. But you also have something else, a really good on-the-field product. You look at the stars on this team, they're loaded. I mean, the Chargers have no excuse, even this year, after having this roster with Derwin James healthy and Bosa and Melvin Ingram. And we can go through all the different players. My issue here is, was Tua the guy or was Herbert the guy? Because Tua went at 5. If the Chargers wanted Tua to be the player, they didn't offer enough to move up in front of Miami, and they got another quarterback, and one who I'm sure they're happy with. But if they had Herbert above Tua, then they're great. They're doing flips. If they didn't, well, I wonder if they will someday regret not just offering a 2nd or a 3rd round pick and going up and getting their guy Tua Tagovailoa. Very interesting pick here because Tua would have been selling tickets and he would have had that entire market on fire. Herbert, There's a couple shrugged shoulders, and we'll see how this goes. Very interesting to see how this plays out in the long term.
This is a difficult question to answer. When you're trying to think about who's in the best situation, it's tough because what do you want? Do you want to hear that Joe Burrow's in the best situation because he's going to start? We know that. The days of Andy Dalton being the starter in Cincinnati, they're done. Do you want me to say Herbert because he has an opportunity to fight for a chance to start? And he does. Think about it. The first time Tyrod Taylor micromanages a game and they don't win, that crowd is going to be yelling for Herbert. Or do you want me to answer and say that it's Tua Tagovailoa because he's going to be able to sit outside the game, watch it from a bird's eye view, learn from Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then in his second season come back smarter, healthier, and then go out there and try to light the league up? Personally, I love it when quarterbacks have to sit because, one, you're humbled immediately, and you realize that I can dominate in college, and I'm not the man right now. Two, you get to watch the entire league and pick and choose pieces of what you want. If you're Tua Tagovailoa, you can say, you know what? I want to work on my pocket presence, so I'm going to watch Russell Wilson all year. I want to have poise in the pocket, so I'm going to pay attention to how Drew Brees does it. You know what? I want to understand how to sit in the pocket without having to run like Tom Brady. Or I'm going to pay attention to Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers and see how they negotiate the pocket, extend plays, and then throw it downfield to my wide receivers. I feel like when it comes to learning and then excelling in their second season, I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa for the best fit in being in the best situation.
Wow.
I hear you, Nate. Tua does have a lot of things going for him, a lot of mystery there, though. And I look at Justin Herbert. Okay, you get to stay in the Pac-12. You get some great players around you. You get a really cool coach and a loaded roster. And you get Patrick Mahomes twice a year for the rest of your career, for the rest of your life, pretty much. I don't know how desirable that is, dropping into that Chiefs gauntlet as Mahomes is just now realizing his powers. And Justin Herbert's job, specifically, make no bones about it, guys, is to beat Patrick Mahomes. That is why you get drafted at that point, to take out the man. It's the same reason the Bears drafted Mitch Trubisky to beat Aaron Rodgers, and it hasn't really happened. I will say this, speaking of the Packers, in a roundabout way, I think Jordan Love might have landed in the best spot. Let me tell you why. Jordan Love, as we know coming up to this, a lot of work to do. Little erratic, kind of a project. If he landed somewhere where it's like, you're in, kid, that might have absolutely exploded. He's going to sit for a year. He might sit for 2 years. He might sit for 3 years. I don't know. And I know we're going to get into this, but I would bet my life that Aaron Rodgers will not only be a good mentor for him, he will be a role model and the best mentor anybody has ever had. I think it is a point of pride for Rodgers. I think he is a much more enlightened athlete than Brett Favre was at his time, and I think that Jordan Love will learn a ton from Rodgers while he waits, and it's the best thing that could ever happen to him.
Eventually, yeah. As far as impact, I like what you're saying about Herbert having to contend with our guy Patrick Mahomes, but even Tua going to the Dolphins. Yeah. The AFC East is leveling up. It's still got Belichick there. I feel like the complement of receivers, the support, the Chargers are a loaded team. So you look at Keenan, Mike Williams, Eckler, Hunter Henry. He's got the weapons. He's got a great coach. He does exactly what his coach wants. He doesn't really make mistakes. So he'll be out there. He gets to stay on the West Coast. A nice quick flight for his family from Eugene, Oregon, down to watch games in LA, a new franchise, a new era. A lot of responsibility for Herbert, but I think he's going to knock it out of the park early. And I'm excited for these Chargers who sent us these jerseys. So we love you. We're going to rock these out. Great draft choice. All right, Kyle, I'm going to throw this one back to you. The Packers took Love. I know you just talked about him. Okay. I wanted to dig a little deeper into how Aaron Rodgers is feeling right now. You're saying he's more enlightened. Is he going to come out with a statement? Like, how do you think this goes? Because it's going to be under a microscope like anything he says or doesn't say is.
It makes me wonder what he was thinking at the time of, he was this past week was on AJ Hawk's podcast, and AJ asked him if he's going to watch the draft, and Rodgers said, I'm going to watch it on mute. He said, why? He's like, I'd rather listen to my 90s alternative playlist than the pundits. So I actually wonder what song was he listening to when Jordan Love was picked? Was it something from the Wallflowers? Was it 7 Mary 3? Or maybe was it Don't Turn Back in Anger? Because whatever it was, I would have turned the volume up because I'm going back to January when Aaron Rodgers is on the cusp of going back to the Super Bowl. And the San Francisco 49ers are not just beating them, they're beating them up. Guys, the Niners were running on 3rd and long. I mean 3rd and 9. They were running the ball because they could. They were dunking the Packers under the pool so hard. And the Packers' response to that, when there's guys like Patrick Queen sitting there, and there's muscle, and there's defensive enforcers, is to get a guy who will not play a down for potentially multiple years. I think Rodgers must be frustrated, maybe exasperated, and yet I will double back on this. I think that one of the most important things in Rodgers' career, and I'm talking out of it, I don't know him, anything, is to not do to the next quarterback what Favre did to him. I think he will swallow it, and I think he will teach Jordan Love everything he knows, but I do not think the Packers got better last night, and I actually think they hurt their chances to get Rodgers to another Super Bowl.
Because everybody everywhere else is saying Rodgers is throwing things around his room. They want to get a camera on his reaction. Guys, that was a scarring experience for Rodgers those first few years with Favre. Favre was not kind to him, was outright cruel at times. But in recent years, they have both spoken how they have now come to great terms and are actually friends. And Rodgers right now is actually older than Favre was when they drafted Rodgers back in 2005. I'm with Kyle on this. I think that Rodgers here, it would be really hypocritical and it would really be out of character for him to outwardly be vindictive or hold it against the young man coming in here. But I also don't think he's going to be showing him the ropes. I don't think he's going to be one of these guys who's going to be staying late at practice to make sure Jordan Love takes his job. It's going to be a competition, but he's not going to go out of his way to make times hard for him. Brett Favre did that to him. I don't think Rodgers wants to do that to the next guy.
Yeah, we're all in agreement here. I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to act that way either. Listen, Jordan Love can't help who selected him. The Green Bay Packers, they traded up to get him. So they wanted him in that building, and Aaron Rodgers is going to have to deal with that. From a front office perspective, I know Aaron Rodgers is feeling like Big Ben did a couple of seasons ago when they drafted Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round. And remember, they talked to Big Ben, and Big Ben said, well, if it was me, I wouldn't have selected a quarterback. He's basically saying we could have addressed other positions. Now, I know that's exactly what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. We could have addressed other positions. This isn't a decision based on Aaron Rodgers. This is a decision based on the head coach, the organization, and what they want to do moving forward after Aaron Rodgers is done. For a long time, the tagline for the draft was, the future is now. So whether you want to admit it or not, the future is now for the Green Bay Packers. So they're not thinking about another good player that could help their season this year. They're thinking about a great quarterback that they can develop over the next few years that